My fiancé invited the sister who destroyed my life to our wedding without telling me. So I canceled everything, and he never saw what came next. I'm Lily Evans, 31. And just 6 months ago, I said yes to the man I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. Brian Carter. We'd been together for 5 years. The proposal was simple, quiet in our kitchen over pancakes. I cried. He laughed. It felt like a new chapter 1 we'd been building toward for years. Our wedding was supposed to be next month, but recent events have made me realize just how wrong I was about everything. To understand why I walked away, why I threw out the dress, the rings, the plans, why I deleted everything with one calm click. You need to know about her. You need to know about Astrid. Astrid Carter, Brian's younger sister. She and I weren't just acquaintances. Years ago, we were classmates, friends even, until she ruined everything. I was 22 and had just earned a full-ride graduate scholarship, an extremely competitive program in neuroscience at Stanford. It was my dream. I'd worked for years, sometimes through the night, sometimes through tears, sometimes through pain I didn't even know how to name. And I had made it. Astrid and I had been sharing an off-campus apartment at the time. She was a psychology undergrad, always complaining about pressure and professors, but she seemed supportive. She threw me a small party the night the acceptance email came in. Said she was proud of me, hugged me in front of everyone. I didn't know that while I was out celebrating, she was logged into my laptop. She forged emails to the department board, claiming I had fabricated lab data in undergrad. Screenshotted fake conversations between me and supposed lab assistants she created. And then she sent them directly to the university. The investigation moved fast. My scholarship was revoked within 2 weeks. My spot disappeared. And so did Astrid. She withdrew from campus and ghosted me completely. I never got my day to explain. No one listened. Not even my advisor. I had to start over working odd jobs, eventually rebuilding my education through online courses and later a state university. It took years to trust people again. Years to stop dreaming about the email that changed everything. And then I met Brian. He didn't know about Astrid at first. On our 4th date, I told him the whole story, from start to finish. Every word, every name. He was shocked. He believed me. He swore he hadn't spoken to her in years anyway. Said they'd been distant since their teens, that she'd always been chaotic. He held my hand, looked me in the eye, told me she was never going to be part of our life together. I believed him. I really, really believed him. But last Tuesday, everything changed. I'd just gotten home from a long workday. Rain clung to my coat like moss, and the apartment smelled like the white tea candle Brian always lit in the evenings. He was at the dining table, typing laptop, open guest list, spreadsheet up. I kicked off my shoes, smiled at him like I always did. Almost done, he said, glancing at the screen. Just added a few final names. I didn't think twice. Until he said, "Oh, by the way, I added Astrid." I thought I misheard. I stared at him, frozen mid-step. "You?" What? He didn't look up. "Astrid. I added her to the list. She said she'd love to come." My stomach twisted. Something inside me shrank. "You've been talking to her." He hesitated. That pause told me more than any full confession. "For how long, Brian?" "A couple months," he muttered, "just checking in. She reached out first. I thought maybe she's changed. I thought maybe this could help heal things." I felt the heat drain from my hands. My fingertips went cold. "You added her to our wedding guest list behind my back," I said, not a question, a statement, a verdict. He finally looked up. His expression was tired, guilty, but not surprised. "You said she wasn't in your life anymore," I whispered. "I didn't know it would matter this much," he said. I laughed. It was a sharp sound, bitter. "You didn't think it would matter that the woman who sabotaged my entire future is going to sit at our wedding and eat salmon and sip champagne while I say vows over the ashes she left me in?" He opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. "Don't. Just don't." I walked past him, into the bedroom, closed the door. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't pack. I opened my laptop, logged into the wedding portal, canceled the catering, then the venue, then the officiant. I removed every digital trace of a wedding that would never happen. And then I did the same to the relationship. When I walked back out, Brian stood in the same spot, pale, stunned. "I'm leaving," I said. "And we're done," his voice cracked. Lily, this doesn't have to be the end, it already is. Because what he gave her wasn't just a seat at the wedding. It was a place in our life, in my pain, without asking me. And if someone can't understand the lines you drew to protect yourself, they have no business standing beside you at the altar. That was the night I left. The night the woman I rebuilt finally stood tall. To understand why Astrid's name on that list broke something in me, you have to understand who she used to be. Astrid Carter wasn't just Brian's younger sister. She was once my friend. We met in undergrad, same major, same lab group, same late nights at the campus cafe, hunched over research papers. She was loud and bright and magnetic in a way I wasn't. People remembered her laugh in the hallway, her boots that clicked like she owned every floor she walked across. Me, I was the quiet one, the organized one. I took notes in color-coded pens and brought homemade flashcards to group study sessions. Astrid liked to say we were opposite halves of the same brain. I believed her. In sophomore year, she asked if I wanted to move in with her off campus. Rent split, evenly shared grocery lists, late-night movie marathons. It sounded perfect. And for a while, it was. She'd leave sticky notes on the fridge that said things like, "You're going to crush that exam today, Dr. Evans to be." And I'd bake her lemon bars before her presentations because she swore they were lucky. We talked about grad schools, research dreams, what it would be like to have our names printed on peer-reviewed journals side by side. But underneath all that, there were cracks. She didn't like when I got praise. She'd make jokes that weren't jokes. When a professor asked me to TA a summer course, Astrid laughed and said, "Guess sleeping with the syllabus works, huh?" When I got nominated for an academic leadership award, she called it Nerd of the Year and left a plastic tiara on my desk. I brushed it off, because that's what you do when you want to keep the peace. When you think someone loves you even if they keep pinching you in the same bruise. The week I got the scholarship offer was when everything fell apart. It was a national grant, competitive, prestigious, a full ride to Stanford's neuroscience graduate program. My hands were shaking when I opened the email. I remember rereading it over and over, the words blurring through tears. Astrid hugged me that night, said she was proud of me, brought home a bottle of cheap champagne. We drank it straight from the bottle on the balcony, wrapped in a thrifted blanket, laughing about our future. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in the dean's office, blinds drawn, heart-pounding, being shown screenshots of emails I never wrote. Accusations of data manipulation. References to private experiments I hadn't even mentioned in my scholarship essays. Messages from a burner email that used my full name, photo, and writing patterns so closely that even I had to read them twice. They said they were opening an investigation. I remember walking home that night in a daze. The streetlights buzzed above me. I could hear my footsteps, but not the sounds around them. When I opened the apartment door, Astrid was there, sipping tea, scrolling her phone. She looked up and smiled. "You okay?" She must have known. But I said nothing. The next morning she was gone. She withdrew from campus a week later, never answered my texts, blocked me on everything. The investigation didn't take long. I lost the scholarship, the grad school offer, my academic standing crumbled, and the girl who'd toasted to my future disappeared like smoke. I never got justice. I never got an apology. I never even got the chance to scream. For a long time I stopped dreaming. I took a year off, worked nights at a diner, saved. Slowly reapplied to smaller programs, rebuilt my GPA, rented a studio the size of a closet, and ate boxed pasta 4 nights a week. But I made it. Not back to Stanford, but back to myself. And then years later, Brian walked into my life. We met at a mutual friend's bonfire. He offered me the last chair and didn't flinch when I said I was allergic to dogs and hated pumpkin spice. He was calm, steady, a little sarcastic, but never cruel. On our 4th date, I told him everything about Astrid, the scholarship, the betrayal. He didn't interrupt, just listened, quietly, eyes locked on mine the whole time. When I finished, he said, "I believe you. That sounds like hell." And then he added, "She hasn't been in my life for years. We barely speak. I'm sorry she did that to you." That night, I let him hold me. I told myself he was different, that he knew the weight of trust and the cost of broken promises. That's what made last Tuesday feel like a crack in the earth. It wasn't just that he had spoken to Astrid. It was that he had fully known how much she had taken from me, and still chose to bring her back into my life without asking. Not out of malice, but out of comfort. His comfort. Because forgiveness looks romantic in movies. Because family should be there. Because maybe if we pretend long enough, everything broken will glue itself back together without consequence. But that's not how healing works. And that's not how trust survives. Especially when the person you love hands your worst memory an invitation, with your name engraved in gold right beside it. I didn't notice it at first. The first few weeks after our engagement were exactly what you'd expect: champagne flutes, endless congratulations, Pinterest boards full of fairy lights, and seating chart stress. Brian was radiant, thoughtful, excited. So was I. Until the first time he said her name. We were driving back from a cake tasting something lemony and overly ambitious. I was watching raindrops race each other across the windshield when he said out of nowhere, "Do you ever think about reconnecting with her?" It took me a moment to process who her was, who I asked even though I already knew. "Astrid," he said, eyes still on the road. I mean, maybe it's time my fingers tensed in my lap. Time for what I don't know. Closure, maybe she's still your age. People change, I laughed. It came out short and sharp. Did she tell you that? That she's changed, Brian shrugged. No, it's just something I've been thinking about. I stared at him hard. Why he didn't answer right away. Just turned on the wipers as if that could erase the silence stretching between us. The next time it was during dinner with his parents. We were 2 glasses of wine in when his mom said, smiling over roasted chicken, "It'd be so nice to see the whole family together again at the wedding." I missed the girls laughing. I froze, mid-bite. "The girls?" She nodded, chuckling. "You and Astrid. You used to be inseparable." Brian coughed, shifted in his chair, didn't meet my eyes. I didn't say a word the rest of the night. Later, when we got home, I closed the door behind me a little harder than I meant to. "Did you tell them?" I asked, not bothering to take off my coat. He looked up from the couch, guilty. "Tell them what you know what." Brian stood up slowly. I didn't give them details, just that things were complicated between you two. "Complicated," I said, voice rising. "That's how you described it." What was I supposed to say? He snapped, suddenly defensive. That my sister nuked your academic life and ghosted. That she was a sociopathic liar and you'll never forgive her. They'd want to know why we weren't inviting her. They don't need to know I shot back. They're not the ones she hurt. Brian sighed, rubbing his temples. "Lily, I'm not trying to start a fight. I just think, maybe you've been holding on to this for too long." That stopped me cold. I stared at him, unsure whether to laugh or walk out. "Too long," I said quietly. His tone softened, but the words still stung. "Babe, I'm just saying it's been almost a decade. People grow. Maybe she regrets it. And maybe I don't care." His jaw tensed. "Brian," I said slowly. Like explaining to a child, she didn't just lie. She dismantled everything I worked for. I had to rebuild my life from dust. I still have dreams where I'm standing in front of the Stanford office begging someone to listen. I could see him wince. Maybe he remembered the night I told him that, wrapped in a blanket, shaking like I'd run a marathon. But something was shifting in him. A quiet stubbornness. A script someone else had fed him. "But what if this is your chance to close the loop?" he asked gently. I stepped back. "Why are you pushing this?" His voice broke slightly. "Because I believe in family, Lily. I can't imagine cutting mine off forever." The words hung there, loud and final. So that was it. This wasn't about healing. It was about principle. About his image of family, about holiday photos and matching Christmas pajamas. About keeping the idea of unity alive, no matter how broken it actually was. I shook my head. "You think I want this distance? You think I enjoy pretending someone who stabbed me in the back doesn't exist? I think you haven't tried," he said. That hurt more than anything, because I had tried. I'd tried to forgive her in the silent ways, by breathing, by waking up, by not letting her define every conversation. I'd tried to be okay. But now the man I loved was telling me my healing wasn't enough, that I needed to wrap it in a bow and present it at the altar like some symbolic act of forgiveness. I went to bed that night without another word. He didn't follow me, and the next morning the subject was dropped. For a while. But the air between us stayed tight, like a stretched rubber band you know will eventually snap. And I knew deep down that Astrid wasn't just going to be a name in a conversation anymore. She was moving closer, quietly, one sentence at a time. It happened on a Wednesday. I remember because it had rained that morning, then cleared into one of those rare golden afternoons where Portland almost feels like California. I'd picked up dinner on the way home, Thai curry from the little place down the street. Brian liked extra spice for him, mild for me. He was already home sitting on the floor, sorting through RSVP cards like it was any other night. It wasn't. I placed the bag on the kitchen island, opened the containers, and noticed his laptop screen still glowing on the table. Guest list spreadsheet. Open and unsaved. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't looking for anything. But my name caught my eye. Lily Evans, Plug 1. And just a few lines down, Astrid Carter, confirmed, table 5. It felt like being hit in the chest with cold water. Not a slap, a pour. Silent, icy, inescapable. I stood there not breathing, my fingers still wrapped around a plastic spoon. You confirmed her. My voice didn't even sound like mine. Brian looked up slowly. Lily? You confirmed her, I said again, louder this time. You invited her and confirmed her and gave her a seat at our wedding table. He stood up, guilt painting every inch of his face. I was going to tell you, when I asked, stepping away from the counter. After she gave a toast, after the photographer caught us all smiling, He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't know how. I laughed. Just once. Short and sharp. You didn't know how to tell your fiancé that you betrayed her? I didn't betray you, he said quickly. You just what I cut in. Reached out behind my back. Listened to the girl who ruined my life and decided she was the one who deserved to be there. At our wedding, his mouth opened and closed. She called me a loser, I said, voice low now. When you told her we were getting married, she said, You're marrying that loser. His eyes widened. Yes, Brian. I know, because she told me. The moment you gave her a window, she climbed right in and spat on everything. He looked away, jaw tight. I thought, he started, then stopped. I thought if she came, maybe you two could finally. No, I snapped. Don't finish that sentence. You thought you could fix it. That if she showed up and played nice for a few hours, my trauma would magically pack itself away. I thought you might want to forgive her, he said, his voice quieter now. Not for her. For you. I stared at him, stunned. You think I haven't tried to forgive her, I whispered. You think every year I didn't try to let it go, to move on, to breathe, without remembering what she did. He said nothing. I built a life out of ruins. I clawed my way back from something she chose to do. And you decided your fantasy of a perfect family was more important than the one thing I asked of you. He looked like he wanted to cry. But I didn't want his tears. I wanted truth. How long, Brian? He blinked. What? How long have you been talking to her? He hesitated. Since before the engagement. That was it. I felt it clean and sudden, the crack across the foundation. Something breaking beyond repair. You lied to me, I said almost calmly. All this time, I didn't lie. Lying by omission is still lying, Brian, especially when it's about her. I didn't know how to bring it up, he said. You're so rigid when it comes to Astrid. I was trying to protect you. No, I said flatly. You were trying to protect your version of me, the one who'd let things slide, the one who wouldn't make you choose. His eyes pleaded now. I didn't want to choose. And now you don't have to. The silence between us was heavy. It felt like fog pressing into my lungs. I'm not marrying someone who doesn't respect my boundaries, I said. You knew this was my line. You crossed it. I thought love meant forgiveness, he whispered. And I thought love meant respect. He reached for me. I stepped back. His hand fell to his side. I don't think I can do this anymore, I said. And the words came out steady, unshaken. Brian's voice cracked. Lily, please. It's one mistake, it's not, I interrupted. It's months of decisions, quiet, secret decisions that told me exactly where I stand. I grabbed my keys, my bag. The air inside the apartment felt thin now, stripped of color. Brian was crying by the time I reached the door. He called after me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Because the moment Astrid's name appeared on that list, so did a truth I couldn't ignore. He knew what she did. He heard me tell it. And he still let her in. That's when I knew I wasn't the one walking away. He'd already left. He just didn't have the courage to say it out loud. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the guest room, the room we said would become his studio after the wedding, watching the shadows on the ceiling stretch and shift with every passing hour. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even speak. Because when someone betrays you quietly, your grief becomes quiet too. By sunrise, I had made up my mind. I walked back into the kitchen barefoot on the cold tile and opened my laptop. The wedding planner portal was still logged in. The screen glowed pale in the dim light. First, I canceled the venue. A click, a confirmation. Done. Then the florist. We'd spent 3 weekends choosing wildflower palettes and eucalyptus runners. Gone. The string quartet, the photographer, the dessert truck he loved. Gone, gone, gone. I didn't hesitate, because every line item was a reminder that this wasn't just about a day. It was about who he had shown himself to be. Each cancellation felt like peeling back a layer of skin that wasn't mine anymore. Next came the guests. I opened the email draft titled Final Invitations, ready to send. It sat in our shared folder like a grenade with the pin still in. I deleted it, all of it. And then I opened a new document. Subject line change of plans. I kept it simple. Brian and I have decided to cancel the upcoming ceremony. Thank you for your love and support during this time. Please do not reach out to ask what happened. I will not be answering questions. Just know that I'm okay. Truly. I stared at the sentence for a long time before clicking send. The replies started trickling in within an hour. Most were kind. Some were confused. A few were sharp. His cousin texted me furious. So you're just going to humiliate him like this? Over what a guest, I didn't respond. His mother left a voicemail, her voice cracked with emotion, her tone clipped. You're overreacting, Lily. He was trying to do the right thing. Families are complicated. That's no reason to destroy a marriage. I deleted it without listening to the end, because here's what no one understood. It wasn't just a guest. It was a betrayal stitched together from dozens of choices. It was secrets whispered in shadows. It was trust being stripped thread by thread until there was nothing left but bone. Later that day I packed. I moved like someone who'd done this before. I guess in a way I had. Not a breakup, not a wedding, but survival. I'd rebuilt once already after Astrid. I knew what it looked like, what it felt like. That dull, echoing quiet of starting over. I packed my side of the closet, the books I cared about, the photos that weren't shared memories. I left the ring in the ceramic dish by the sink where he always kept his keys. I didn't need a dramatic gesture. I just didn't want it near me anymore. Brian wasn't home. I didn't know where he was. I didn't ask. But around 6 p.m., my phone lit up with his name. I didn't answer. Not the first time. Not the second. Not the 6th. Finally, I opened one of his texts. I get it. I messed up. Please just let me explain. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't want to hear his voice, but because I already had. For weeks, for months, in every small push against the boundary I'd set. In every conversation where he tried to mold my pain into something more palatable. He'd explained himself 1,000 times. Just never with honesty. I stayed that night with my friend Naomi. She didn't ask for details. Just handed me tea and an extra blanket and said, "Whatever it is, I'm on your side." I nearly cried. Then not from the loss, but from the relief. Because for the first time in days, someone didn't question my hurt. Didn't suggest I was overreacting. Didn't try to fix me. She just believed me. I curled up on her couch and slept for the first time in 72 hours. The next morning, I woke to an email from Astrid. Subject line: Hey, I think we should talk. No apology. No acknowledgement of what she did. Just a casual message from the person who once tore my life apart and was now trying to stroll back into it like she had a right to. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Because I already knew what she would say. I was young. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Can't we just start over? No. We couldn't. Because some fires don't leave ashes behind. They leave craters. And some people mistake forgiveness for forgetfulness. But I hadn't forgotten. And I never would. It had been 3 days since I left. 3 days of silence, of ghosting texts, of filtering through emails I didn't want, and blocking numbers I once saved under hearts. I was staying with Naomi still. Her spare room was barely big enough for a dresser, but it gave me something I hadn't had in weeks: room to breathe. Then the call came. It was Brian's mother. The screen lit up with her name, just as I was folding laundry. I let it ring. Let it go to voicemail. But something in me, curiosity, stupidity. Some lingering shard of politeness clicked play when the tone sounded. "Lily, sweetheart," she began, her voice softer than I'd expected. "Please, I know things have been difficult. But would you come to dinner this weekend? Just us. Just the family, no pressure. We want to talk." I should have said no. I should have deleted the message and gone back to folding socks. But I didn't. Because part of me still wanted to believe that someone, anyone on his side, had finally understood what he'd done. So Saturday night I went. I wore a dark sweater, tied my hair back, no makeup, no jewelry. I didn't want to look pretty. I didn't want to look soft. I wanted to be armor. The Carter home was warm and glowing like a Hallmark postcard. Yellow light spilled through the windows. I could smell rosemary chicken and garlic bread before I even reached the porch. His mom answered the door with a tight smile. "I'm so glad you came." I stepped inside, nodding. "Is it just us?" "Of course," she said, reaching for my coat. I should have known. The moment I turned the corner into the dining room, I froze. Astrid was already there, sitting at the table, a wineglass in hand, a casual smile on her lips, like nothing had happened. "Lily," she said, standing up as if we were old friends. I didn't respond. My hands went cold, my feet rooted. "What is she doing here?" I asked, my voice low. Brian's father stepped forward. "We thought, maybe if you two talked." "You lied to me," I said, turning to his mother. Her face crumbled. "We just want to help you both move on." I took a step back. "By ambushing me, please?" Astrid said. "I just want to apologize." The sound of her voice, it was too smooth, too practiced, like she'd rehearsed this in the mirror. I looked at her, really looked. She hadn't changed. Same perfect posture. Same fake concern layered under performative vulnerability. "You don't get to ambush me into closure," I said, locking eyes with her. "You don't get to sit at a table you burned down." Brian walked in then. Of course he did. Late flustered jacket, half on. He stopped short when he saw me. "You came," he said, relief flooding his face. I turned to him slowly. "You knew." He hesitated. "I thought if you saw her, if she apologized. Maybe you still don't get it," I said. "You never did." Lily, Astrid tried again. "I really am sorry." "No," I snapped. "You're sorry because you think it's convenient. Because it fits the scene you all set up. But what you're not sorry for is what you actually did." "I was a kid," she said, her voice cracking. "You were 19, I said. And you made a choice. A violent, calculated choice. And you walked away without ever looking back." She opened her mouth. I shook my head. "Don't. Please. I've heard enough from people who think sorry is a magic word." Brian stepped forward. "We just want to make things right." "You don't make things right," I said coldly, by pretending the damage wasn't done. I turned to his parents. "You all think forgiveness is some group project. That if we just sit under the same roof and eat enough garlic bread, we'll forget the smell of smoke." They were silent. And for once, I was louder than all of them. I came tonight because I thought, maybe, just maybe, someone in this family would finally choose truth over appearances. But I see now. You're all fluent in pretty lies. I grabbed my coat and turned toward the door. Brian called after me. "Lily, don't do this." I didn't turn around. "You did this," I said, my hand on the doorknob. "And the worst part is, you still don't think you did anything wrong." And then I walked out. Into the cold night. Into the quiet. Into my own peace. I didn't cry on the way home. I thought I might. Thought maybe the weight of that night would crack something open inside me, but it didn't. I just drove, hands steady on the wheel. The streets of Portland glowed soft in the rain. My reflection in the rearview mirror was calm, almost unreadable. It was strange to feel so clear. When I got back to Naomi's apartment, she didn't ask anything. She just handed me a blanket and a glass of water and said, "You still breathing?" I nodded. "That's enough," she said, and sat beside me in silence. I told her everything the next morning, not because I needed advice, because I needed someone to witness it. Astrid, Brian, his parents, the setup. The apology that wasn't, the room that felt more like a courtroom than a table. I laid it all out word by word. When I finished, Naomi just shook her head slowly. That wasn't about healing, that was about control. I exhaled long and shaky. "I know. You're not wrong for walking away," she added. "You're just the only one who had the guts to do it." That stuck with me, because for the longest time I thought the braver thing would be to stay. To smile through it, to accept the apology, to rise above. But sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is walk away before the fire starts again. The following days were quiet. I turned off all notifications. I stopped opening emails. I stopped explaining myself. Because what else was there to say? No one saw the burn marks on my skin, but expected me to host the reunion anyway. No one knew what Astrid cost me, but assumed healing meant performance. And Brian. He hadn't called since that night, but his name stayed on my mind longer than I'd like to admit. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the disappointment. Because I thought he was different. I thought he understood the way trust feels like breath to someone who's had it stolen before. I thought when I showed him my deepest scar, he would guard it. Instead, he handed it to the person who made it and asked her to decorate the wedding. One morning, almost a week later, I found myself at a coffee shop I hadn't visited since before the engagement. The barista smiled. "Haven't seen you in a while." "I've been busy," I said with a faint smile. "Planning a wedding." "Congratulations," she said. I hesitated. "It's off." Her smile didn't waver. "Then congrats on dodging something worse." That made me laugh, really laugh. Loud, full-chested. The people at the next table glanced up. I didn't care, because it was something worse I had dodged. A lifetime of being talked over. A lifetime of explaining why my pain wasn't that deep. A lifetime of being softened until I fit someone else's version of forgiving. Later that day, I boxed up the wedding binder. Swatches, receipts, the RSVP board we'd made together. I didn't shred it. I didn't set it on fire. I just sealed the box, labeled it closed chapter, and slid it to the back of the closet. Letting go didn't need to be violent. It just needed to be clear. That night, I opened a new document on my laptop. No spreadsheets, no seating charts, no to-do lists. Just a single line: "I don't owe anyone a reunion to prove I've healed." I left it there, saved, untouched, because that truth didn't need a paragraph. It just needed space. And so did I. Not to forget. Not to forgive. Just to breathe again, on my own terms, without anyone else narrating what my healing should look like. Healing didn't come like a wave. It came in pieces, tiny ones. The first morning, I didn't wake up and immediately check my phone for missed messages from Brian. The first night I fell asleep without replaying the conversation in the Carter dining room. The first time I stood in front of a mirror, looked into my own eyes, and didn't flinch. Those were victories. Small, silent, but mine. I started walking again, not for exercise, not to clear my head, just to feel the ground beneath my feet. Portland in spring is a strange kind of beautiful. The city doesn't bloom all at once, it softens. Slowly. Ferns curl open in sidewalk cracks. Rhododendrons explode in bursts of pink and red on corners you've passed 100 times and never noticed. I passed them now. I saw things again. I smelled things again. I existed again. One Sunday, I wandered into a bookstore I used to love, the kind with crooked shelves and handwritten staff recommendations on tiny index cards. The bell above the door jingled softly as I stepped in, and then I heard an off-key hum from behind one of the shelves. Someone was singing the theme from The Office badly. I rounded the corner and saw her, curly hair, denim jacket. Head tilted as she balanced 3 books in one hand, scanning a 4th. She looked up and smiled. "You ever read this one?" she asked, holding out a novel I'd never seen. I blinked, caught off guard. No," she grinned wider. "Good. Means I beat you to it." I laughed. Just a breath, but real. We ended up chatting for 10 minutes about everything and nothing: authors we liked, bad movie adaptations, coffee orders. Her name was Erin. She had a dog named Billy, and a laugh that shook her whole body. She didn't ask if I was single. She didn't ask what I did. She didn't ask why I looked like someone who had recently escaped a burning house. She just handed me a book and said, "You look like someone who needs this more than I do." It was called A Year of Rest. I smiled. "You're not wrong." That night I made myself dinner, just for me. No shared portions, no table for 2. I ate slowly. I listened to jazz instead of the usual podcasts. I lit a candle, not the white tea one Brian liked, but my own favorite, amber and wood smoke. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. Because the ache wasn't consuming me anymore, it was just part of the furniture. Something I noticed but didn't sit in. 2 weeks later, Erin texted me, "You still owe me a coffee. And maybe a rematch in book picks." I said yes. Not because I was ready, but because maybe. I didn't have to be. We met at a cafe near the waterfront. She ordered a ridiculously complicated drink. I got black coffee, no sugar, no milk, just strong, bitter, and honest. She sipped hers. "So, How's the year of rest going? I smiled. Slow, she nodded. That's the only way it works. We sat there for an hour, then 2. No pressure, no expectations. When we left, she said, I don't think people give themselves enough credit for walking away. I paused. From anything that asked them to become smaller just to fit in. That stuck with me. I went home and wrote it down. I will not shrink to be digestible. The world doesn't stop just because you're hurt. But sometimes, if you're lucky, it slows down long enough for you to catch your breath. That week I rearranged my apartment, moved the bookshelf to where the wedding board used to be, bought fresh flowers, cleaned the windows, opened them. Let spring in. It smelled like soil and rain and something just beginning. I didn't know what came next. I still don't. But I know who I am now. I'm the girl who walked out of a room where no one was listening. I'm the girl who chose silence over apologies she didn't believe. I'm the girl who smiled at a stranger in a bookstore and remembered what her own voice sounded like. That's enough. For now, that's everything. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away before the altar. Not with fireworks, not with screaming, not with some grand defiant monologue. Just a steady step, just a quiet no. Just a moment when you decide this isn't where I lose myself. That was me. 1 month ago, I was someone's bride-to-be. 1 week ago, I was someone's disappointment. Today, I am my own, and that's enough. I sit by the window now, my window in my space, with a cup of tea and bare feet curled under me. Outside, the world is slowly turning towards summer. The clouds have thinned. The sky looks less like weight and more like breath. Sometimes I still hear my mother's voice years ago saying, "You'll know it's love when it asks nothing of your worth." I didn't understand it then. I do now. Because real love, true love, doesn't ask you to make peace with your past just to make someone else comfortable in your present. It doesn't ignore the line you drew in the sand and then paint over it with flowers. It doesn't invite your demons back to dinner and say, "Smile for the picture." Real love listens. And more than that, it remembers. Brian didn't. He forgot. Or maybe worse, he remembered and chose convenience anyway. But that's not my burden anymore. The wedding that never happened taught me more about commitment than any vow ever could. It taught me how to commit to myself, to my boundaries, to my instincts, to my right to walk away without apology. Some nights I still dream of the past, of Astrid's laugh echoing in that tiny college apartment, of my name being dragged through emails I didn't write, of a younger me begging someone to believe her. But I don't wake up gasping anymore. I wake up quiet, whole, home. Erin and I still talk, sometimes over books, sometimes over silence. She doesn't ask if I'm healed. She doesn't treat my history like something to tiptoe around. She just makes space. And maybe that's what healing is. Not erasing the story, but finding people who don't need to rewrite it in order to love you. Last week I visited the campus I once left in shame. I stood on the same brick path where I'd gotten that call, the one that told me my future had been revoked by someone I thought was family. And for a long moment, I just stood there, hands in my pockets, watching students rush past me with coffees and earbuds, and hopes bigger than their backpacks. No one noticed me. No one knew who I was or what that place meant. And somehow, that was the healing. I wasn't defined by what was taken from me. I was defined by what I rebuilt. Not louder, not better, not shinier, just realer, stronger, more honest. I sat on a bench and wrote in my journal. Closure isn't something you get from the people who hurt you. It's something you give yourself the day you stop needing their permission to move on. I don't know where I'm going next, but I know it won't be backward. I'm done keeping seats at the table for people who set the house on fire. I'm done teaching others how to treat me by showing them I'll stay when they cross the line. I'm done shrinking so someone else can stretch. This isn't the ending I imagined when I first said yes in that kitchen with the gold ring and the champagne giggles. But this is better, because it's mine. If you've ever walked away from something or someone that once made your chest light up, but later made your soul go quiet, I want you to know something. You didn't fail. You chose. And choosing yourself will never be a mistake. Ever. So here's to the quiet no. To the steady breath. To the woman who turned away from a wedding and walked straight into her own life. Here's to me. And maybe one day. Here's to you too.